G'day metalheads, I hope you're all well. Today I'm going to be uploading an interview with a great band from Australia. Now this band was called Dungeon, recently changed the name to Lord. Members of Lord were in Dungeon, so have a listen to this old interview with Tim from the old band Dungeon, now with Lord. Let me know what you think, please subscribe, give a thumbs up, share on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook and whatever social media sites you can. So thanks for watching. Be safe, stay metal, and I'll chat to you all soon. Thanks. Hi, Tim, how you doing, mate?
Good, man.
Good, nice to hear from you, finally at last.
Yeah.
After speaking to you on the internet a couple of times, I don't know if you remember emailing each other.
Yeah. Did you end up hearing anything back from Metal Warriors at all?
No, I didn't. Not at all, because I really want to hear your solo. I've heard sound clips on your website, and they really do sound fucking great, man. I mean, Steve doesn't email me for some reason. I don't think he likes his pommies. I don't know.
No, he's had a bit of trouble with his mail server a little while ago, and I think it's been sorted out, but I'm not too sure. So I'll get on to him again tonight, straight after this call.
Please, yeah, if you would. Tim said, I met him a couple of times at Wacken Festival.
Oh, really?
Yeah, have you seen the Wacken video they did? The, I think it was 2000.
I saw a little bit of it.
Right, because I'm on that.
Oh, really? Oh, cool.
Yeah, check out, man. It was released on Nuclear Blast.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, I was like quite surprised actually. I was like, cool.
Excellent.
So okay, so thanks for ringing me. What time is it near you?
It's 9:30 on Thursday night.
Right. Okay, you're in Sydney.
Yeah.
Right. I've got some friends in Australia. A band called do you know the guys Allegiance?
Allegiance, yeah, from Western Australia, yeah.
Yeah, I like Dave real well, the bass player, but he's got his own band, Black Steel.
Yeah, Black Steel's going great right now.
I don't know if you've ever played with them or not, but
no, getting them over here or getting us over to Perth is just a nightmare. It actually costs less for us to tour Japan than it does Perth.
Jesus. That big is it? Alright,
yeah, it's pretty big.
So thanks for ringing me anyway, I appreciate it.
No,
finally we've got a chance to do the interview. Is this the first interview you've done with an English mag website or anything?
For an English one, yeah, we've done a heap of German ones and a couple of French ones.
Cool,
and,
I'm in there first.
Yeah, got in there, look out.
Yes, man. Alright, mate, I wanted to ask you some warm-up questions, because like I say, this is the first time I've done an interview with you. Could you tell me what band you was in before Dungeon, and what sort of things did you do? I mean,
Dungeon was the first serious band that I've done. There was a few, like, bedroom bands that really didn't do anything because, quite frankly, they sucked. And we were just a bunch of dumb kids. And the next thing I know, Dungeon started just purely by accident. Back when I were just a lad, I think we were like 19 or something like that when Dungeon started. And it just kind of happened just by accident. I never really wanted it to. Because I just never really got along with the other guys in the band, both musically and personally. Right. And then the next thing you know, 15 years later, I'm still doing it. So, like, Dungeon was sort of really the first.
Right. So, I mean, up until the first, like, demo CD, did that what they call it, Demolition, was that like the lineup you had up until then?
No. Quite a bit different, actually. We started off with 4 guys from Broken Hill, out where Mad Max was filmed, in the desert.
Oh, yeah.
And that's where we started. And that lineup broke up 6 months after it started. Changed about another 2 or 3 times. Then it ended up with me and a guitar player called Dale, who stuck around until the Resurrection album.
Right.
We recorded our first proper demo in 1994 called Changing Moods, which got us the deal in Japan for Demolition. And by that time, the lineup had changed yet again.
Right.
We've had so many lineup changes over the years, it's just been unbelievable. So by the time, between the start of the band and the Demolition lineup, I think we've already gone through probably about a half a dozen members for each position by that point.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the name Dungeon, was that the first name you came up with?
No, and this is very embarrassing. The first name we came up with was Dredd, after Judge Dredd, from the comic books. But we realised that Anthrax had taken all of our marketing.
Too much Anthrax, I was about to say.
Yeah, so we thought, bugger it. And it was probably going to be all sorts of licensing issues. So then for a week, we changed it to Ratfink.
So what, sorry?
And Ratfink.
Oh, yeah, well, that's an unusual name. Why Ratfink?
And I don't know why we chose that, but it was really stupid, and thank God that we changed it. And then we were looking for a name for the next couple of weeks, and the drummer at the time wandered into where I was staying and saw a whole bunch of Dungeons and Dragons books, and he goes, why don't we call it Dungeon? I went, yeah, whatever, I don't care. And the next thing I know, we had a gig and we went under the name Dungeon, and it sort of stuck with us for 15 years.
Brilliant. Okay, mate. So like the Dungeon CD is actual demo material, isn't it? I believe.
The Demolition CD, yeah.
Yeah, Demolition. Sorry, yeah. I bought that on eBay from some guy in Japan.
Oh, really?
It's really
yeah.
hard to get hold of, isn't it? Apparently.
Yeah, Tokyo Towers or something, or Tower Records or something like that.
I don't know. I don't know what label it's on. It's on Newtown Records.
Yeah, that was our local label. The Newtown Records, which was released through TDK Core in Japan.
That's right.
And,
Yeah, I'm looking at it now. Yeah.
It went
sorry.
ballistic.
And I know Steve said he wanted a copy of it. Has he got it still?
No, you can't get it. The only
Right.
place
Tell
you
him
can
I'll
get it from
burn
is
him
the
it.
Japan.
Tell him I'll burn him a copy and I'll send it to him. Because he said to me ages ago, send it, and I forgot to send him it. That's probably why he hasn't sent me your album. Cause I didn't
That's
send
probably
him
what
that.
it is. Revenge.
Yeah, tell him I apologise. So you did why did you release Demolition album?
Well, what happened was at the time when we were sending stuff over to Japan, TDK Core were interested, and they were so interested in our demos so much they just wanted to release them as is. And we thought, no, this is a really bad idea. But they insisted, and somehow along the line they managed to convince us that it was a good idea. So we thought, yeah, why the hell not? We released it, and within 6 weeks it sold 6,000 copies of our demo.
Wow.
And we were just absolutely astounded.
That is good.
So, it was never meant to be released at all.
Right. Okay, so who's the main influences for Dungeon then? Who's inspired you?
Back then or now?
Both. Let's
Well,
talk about the early days, start off with them. The early days. Who inspired you in the early days?
In the early days, we all had different influences, but I guess me being a primary songwriter, that shaped what the band sounded like mostly. So I'm guessing you would say bands like Dokken, Leatherwolf, Iron Maiden and Judas Priest, obviously, Halloween. It was probably more glam-oriented back then, so we had more influences from, say, Wasp and Twisted Sister and all that sort of stuff than we do now. But in my heart of hearts, I'd always wanted to form a more aggressive band than what we started off. But just due to the lineup at the time, it was probably the most palatable list of influences that we could sort of bring to the band that everybody was happy with.
Right.
These days, we're not sort of scared to draw on a lot of our other influences that we well, especially that I had all throughout the years. And kind of ironically, with Stu joining the band a few years ago, his influences and what he wanted to achieve out of Dungeon was very similar to what I initially wanted to achieve.
Right.
So we grew up listening to both a lot of AOR and hard rock, but also a lot of thrash, like Slayer, Megadeth, Creator.
I thought you said
stuff
trash.
Like that. Yeah, well, a lot
like
of thrash.
sleaze music, like glam, like thrash. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, a bit of thrash. Stuff like melodic death stuff, like Soilwork and At the Gates and everything like that. We're not really scared to sort of draw from a whole bunch of different influences, which is why we're calling Dungeon just a heavy metal band rather than power metal or thrash metal or anything like that, because we like to explore all the different things that make our sound.
Well, you could call yourselves scrap metal.
Scrap metal.
That would be a new one, wouldn't it?
Metal.
Huh?
Mongrel metal.
So how do your old influences and your new ones combine then? Do you think they combine well?
I think they do. If you listen to a lot of the stuff on One Step Beyond, you can hear a lot of the Dokken and Leatherwolf style harmonies, but you can also hear a lot of the fast melodic death stuff like Soilworks and In Flames, for instance, sort of underneath a lot of that stuff. You can hear the speed of thrash. You can hear the progressive elements of stuff like Queensryche, for instance, in songs like The Hunger. But
that is a brilliant song.
Yeah, I'm really proud of that one. But that goes in all sorts of Blind Guardian directions in some places and everything. So it somehow managed to work, combining all of our influences into one.
Right. Okay. So how did you get your first record deal? I mean, talk about your record deal.
Well, the first one, it's kind of funny how it actually all worked.
Which is your first album? Was it Resurrection?
Our first official album we call Resurrection, but if you talk to the Japanese especially, they really consider Demolition the first album because that was the one that got us such a widespread promotion. But even before then, I got signed to BMG Publishing in Australia.
Nice big company.
Yeah, that was pretty amazing how it all happened. I was in recording our first demo tape back in 1992 at a studio called Newtown Studio, which went on to form a record label called Newtown Records, which is where Demolition got signed to initially. And there was one night I was in there, and they were doing a session for a techno artist called Jamie White, who went on to form a band called E-Adrenaline. who had like minor success with techno albums, and they got me to do some session guitar for them.
Oh, never
And,
mind, man. God, that must have sucked. Doing techno
What's that?
music.
It was bizarre. It's like I got to say, this has been awesome because like, the royalties I've been getting from like the stuff that I've done with these guys has been fantastic.
Excellent.
But,
As long as it brings the money in.
So yeah, so eventually when they were shopping for a deal, their CD ended up at BMG, and BMG said, "Who's the guy that played guitar?" And they said, "Lord Tim." And they said, "What's a Lord Tim? This guy sounds like a complete spastic." what sort of preposterous stupid name is that?
Are you actually a lord then? You actually own a big mansion or?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, whatever.
In my mind.
Yeah.
So no, they said this guy sounds like a complete dickhead. Let's hear what else he can do. So I sent in some stuff that we did and some of the Dungeon material, and they said, "Hey, we like it," and they signed us up on the spot. And due to the push from Newtown Records and BMG, that got us signed with TDK Core Records in Japan.
Right.
That's essentially the first record deal.
Right, because I've got the second album. Brad sent me it from Warhead. Is it Brad?
Yes, Brad.
Yeah, it's a good album, Resurrection. I like that album.
It was okay for what it was. We had an extremely limited budget, extremely limited time, and we're all sick and in an unfamiliar studio and all this horrible stuff. It's got such charisma and an innocence to it that's really cool, but it's such a bad sounding album.
It'd be good if you could redo it with today's production, like Saxon did with Heavy Metal Thunder.
It's funny you mentioned that because we're releasing a re-recorded Resurrection in May.
Are you really?
Yes, we are.
So it's like today's technology of modern sounding equipment, giving it that really power.
We recorded the entire Resurrection album again in its entirety while we were recording One Step Beyond.
Wow. I'm looking forward to
And
that. Is that coming out on LMP then?
Yep, May 21, LMP.
Excellent. I'll have to tell them to send us a copy of that, man. So how did it do
Yeah,
then,
it's really
Resurrection? How well did it do? Did it do for you?
It went okay. It got us the exposure that we needed, and it scored us quite a lot of really good international support. We did Malmsteen and Nevermore and all that sort of stuff around that time. Yeah, so that scored us some good supports, and it made it into its third pressing, which I guess is somewhere, about 2,000 copies, which is great for Australia. For the rest of the world, it sucks too. But for Australia, it's awesome.
Has it been released? Has it actually been released outside of Australia, this album? Or is this going to be the first time shortly?
Resurrection?
Mm.
Do you mean?
Yeah.
Well, the first Resurrection was only available through export. The first international released album was actually Rise to Power through LMP.
Right, which is coming out very shortly. So people.
No. Rise to Power came out in 2003.
No, I'm on about the Resurrection album.
Oh, Resurrection? No. Like, the old Resurrection was only really domestic and it was exported, but the new one will be international.
You can say that Resurrection. It's a shame it never got exposed outside of Australia for its time. I remember reviewing the album. I remember reviewing it because I used to do a fanzine, but now I do a website. So if I found the review, I'll have to send it to you. Email it to you or something. So
we were so proud of it at the time.
I bet you did. So what did you do after Resurrection? Was it Raised to Power? Was that the second album after that?
Yeah, we changed lineup a few times.
I've noticed. Yeah, I mean, what was the problem with the lineup changes?
As the band goes on, it's taken a long time to sort of get where we are, and working in Australia with no money and really no support from the media really takes its toll because you've got to do it for the love. And especially people like, say, Dale, who had been in the band for 11 years, it was just really starting to wear him down. And because of that, you end up with, stuff like in any relationship, like a marriage or something. If you're in an unhappy environment, it doesn't matter how strong the relationship is, there's going to be cracks that appear, and you just get really sick of each other. Mm-hmm. So just because it's just probably the sheer longevity of Dungeon, and also partly a few members in the past had other commitments elsewhere rather than sort of being focused on the band. We're just constantly trying to surround ourselves with the best musicians we can with the same sort of mindset that we've got, and it does cause problems somewhere along the line, and it is a pain in the arse changing lineups so often, but we've got to ultimately sort of look out for number one, which is Dungeon. So yeah, getting back to what you asked before, we did change lineup. We went into record the Rise to Power album, which came out in 2002 in Australia, and it went ballistic. It became the best-selling traditional metal album of all time, and in Australia, that is. And we went off on a massive spree of supporting Doro and Ed Guy and Destruction and doing our own tours, Mayhem and Opeth, and it was just nuts. That raised our profile like you wouldn't believe.
Right, get back to the Resurrection just briefly, Tim. What songs in that album do you like and why?
On Resurrection?
Yeah.
The title track especially, we love playing that live, but it just completely goes off. Paradise is a good song, but I'm absolutely sick to death of it because we recorded it like 9 times now.
Really?
If I ever hear that song ever again, I'm going to strangle somebody. I quite like I Am Death because of the attitude to it. It's total cheese, but it's good cheese.
Yeah, it's a good song. I like the chorus, the way it's just...
Yeah, live, it's a motherfucker. It's really, really good. I think, every song on the album has got a bit of a special spot for me. I think probably The Legend of Humour is probably the closest one to me.
Right, why's that one?
Yeah. I'm a big fan of the Dragonlance novels, and just the message behind it, my honour is my life and all that sort of stuff, I think is really cool. And being such an epic, it's really good. That's one of the ones that I was looking forward most to re-recording, and putting all the orchestration and big harmony vocals and everything that was missing from the first one.
Brilliant. Okay. Any songs on there that you don't particularly like? You think, no. You've had to redo the whole album by the sounds of it, haven't you?
Pretty much everything except for Let It Go, which was it wasn't really a Dungeon song to begin with. It was actually a song from our bass player at the time, Justin's band, King Oath, or Maximum Carnage, or whatever he was calling it at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So he's actually taken that song and he's using that in his new project.
Right.
It never really quite fit in with Dungeon anyway. It was more sort of like more of a punk thing than a heavy metal thing than what we were doing.
So is that song not going to be on the album then? On the
No, that's actually being replaced by a ballad called Severed Ties,
right.
which is a new song.
Right, okay, cool.
Yeah, so I'd say probably that one, as much as I liked it for what it was, I think that's the one that probably does stick out for me as being wrong for the album. So if I was going to pick a song that wasn't right, it would be that one.
Right, okay. So talking about the second album then, you got Raised to Power. What songs on that album do you like and why?
On that one, Lost in the Light is probably my favourite because it's just so over the top everywhere. Kick you in the nuts vocals, there's like triplet blast beats, there's like harmonised sweep picking solos. It's stupid. It's great. That one is probably Insanity's Fall because it's so catchy, Nether Life because it's fun. It's got a lot of good things on that album. I'm really proud of it.
Yeah, are you happy with the production on that album?
I was at the time, but I've got to say we were very limited to what we were doing, and that was probably one of the first things that we did in the studio with the computer-based recording.
Cubase, was it Cubase?
Computer-based, no, it was actually Cakewalk Products. It was Sonar.
Yeah, Cakewalk, right.
Yeah, which is, it wouldn't have really mattered what platform that we used. It was probably just more inexperience and lack of money that sort of made it sound like it did. I think the production's good, but I reckon it could be a million times better with a remix.
Because it got re-released on LMP. I've got the Australian copy.
Yeah,
I've actually seen the LMP one. I mean, with the different cover and that. I mean, if LMP had come into this deal, would it have sounded better? Did they license this after you recorded it?
Essentially, the soundtrack, the sound you're hearing is exactly the same, and all they did was just change the packaging because they were convinced that the new packaging would help it in Europe. Well, I'll let the cover art speak for itself, and I'll say no more.
Right. I mean, if LMP had come into this deal with you, if they'd have signed you before you released this album, would the production sounded better? Do you think?
Yes and no. Really, the money that LMP can sort of really give to their artists was pretty limited anyway, so I'm not too sure if there was much of a budget to remix. And at the time, as I said, we were pretty happy with it, so we were pretty much opposed to anybody touching it. Call it pig-headedness or whatever you'd like to call it, artistic integrity. But we would have preferred to sort of keep it the way that it was, even if it did have flaws.
Right. So which album cover do you prefer, the Australian one or the European one?
The Australian cover, and there's, it's definitely the Australian cover.
Right.
I don't want to... being political, I think that the Australian cover is the true representation of what the album should be, and the European one is probably not what we'd like to see.
Right, because this album also saw a couple of members depart, didn't they? Like Drac and left the band. What was the reason for these? Because it all seems to be like the rhythm section that seems to be leaving your band, doesn't it? Really. Drums and bass. See you later.
Yeah. Well, after Rise to Power came out, like I said, we did quite a lot of touring. We went to Japan. We brought out another limited edition CD called Rising Power and a DVD called Under the Rising Sun.
Tell us a little bit about that, please.
Okay, well, the DVD, first of all, the Rising Power CD was a limited edition compilation CD, especially for the Japanese market, to sort of remind them who the hell we were, because we were touring there in May 2003. So we toured there, and we filmed the show that we did at Club Cheetah as part of the metal festival, and we did all the behind-the-scenes things and all of that sort of stuff. And it was just too good of an opportunity not to film it. So we recorded the show live and recorded the vision and released a DVD called Under the Rising Sun, which is going to be bundled with the Digipack limited edition version of One Step Beyond.
Cool, because I'm getting a copy of that from the LMP, sending me the official Digipack when it's released.
Awesome, I can't wait to see that either. That looks fantastic.
Yeah, I can't wait to watch it, actually.
Yeah, well, the DVD came out really good. A lot of people were very surprised that, like, a band that had really only had a couple of albums out was, like, releasing a DVD so soon, but when you see it, you'll understand.
Man, there's loads of bands doing it, and people doing, like, one album releasing DVDs.
Yeah.
You know, so why can't you?
Oh, exactly. No, it looks fantastic. You watch back, and I still can't believe that's us. We look like Halloween or something.
Really?
Yeah, it's just massive. Yeah, that came out, and once again, the struggle of sort of constantly touring and, you know, having no money and all that sort of stuff was really taking its toll, and there was a lot of personal issues within the band. It just really came down to myself and Stu not really enjoying working with Dak and Steve-O anymore, and we were sort of tolerating it for the time being, but especially in the last 6 months before they departed, it was just really a chore going to rehearsal and sort of looking at these guys. And I knew they felt the same, and finally it just went, you know, forget it. It all split up. After that, we ended up getting 2 guys in from the band, Infernal Method, to play our rhythm section.
Are you still friends with the old lineup then, Tim?
Yes and no. Yes. I don't think we'd ever work with them again. Because it was just a very stressful thing, and I think there's probably still some bad feelings on both of our behalves when it comes to professional dealings.
So I think if you meet each other in the street, you'll say hello, and, you know...
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We see each other at gigs all the time, and it's really friendly. We buy each other drinks and everything like that, and it's fantastic. They're great guys,
right.
But just professionally, I just don't think we could ever get along.
Right. They had different views and different styles of music compared to what you wanted to do, by the sounds of it.
Yeah, and more so different attitudes on how things should actually work in the inner workings of the band, which is probably more important than even musical direction.
Right. So you got 2 new guys in the band now then. So where did you meet these 2 then?
Well, we did.
And how long are they going to be in the band?
What happened was we got these guys in from a band called Infernal Method, which are we're a melodic death band. They were one of my favourite bands, Australian metal bands.
Right.
And they joined, and we did some fantastic shows. You know, just playing, and you know, some of the most accomplished musicians ever. But we talked about it, and ultimately the musical direction of where we wanted to head wasn't really what they wanted to do either. So just to save a situation happening like what happened with Dak and Steve-O somewhere down the track, we decided that it was probably wise to sort of call it quits before we did become enemies.
Yeah, because obviously this album wouldn't have turned out as good as it would have done if it had the old lineup. It would have shown in the music, wouldn't it, the recording?
Yeah, well, that's right. Well, the musicians that you're hearing on One Step Beyond is actually... Steve-O played some of the drums, and I played all of the bass.
Right.
So essentially what you are hearing on that album is the old lineup.
Right.
Yeah, so, and you'll be hearing Steve-O's drums on Resurrection as well.
Right, cool. So you're happy with the 2 new guys?
Well, we were, like I said, they were fantastic, and we're sad to see them go, but it's for the best. So we're actually currently auditioning people right now.
Oh, right. Okay,
yeah.
So these guys are actually just session musicians then? They just helped out do the album, and then...
No. Well, what happened was it was Dak and it was Steve-O that played drums on A Rise to Power on One Step Beyond, and I played the bass. Dak wasn't involved in that. And after both of those albums were recorded, that's when everybody sort of left the band. Then we got these 2 new guys in, and they've only just left literally this weekend.
Wow. So why did they leave?
Yeah.
I mean, it was Pete. Pete and Graham, was it?
Yeah, Pete and Graham. Yeah. So that was the musical direction that we talked about there. So. They wanted to do something different somewhere down the track, and we talked about it, and we said it just may not work out. So rather than saving the stress, like what happened with us and Steve-O and Dak,
yeah,
we just all mutually decided that it just wasn't going to work, and we just didn't want to fight with these guys because they're such great guys.
Oh, that sucks, man. So have you got anybody in mind then? Are you looking at?
We're auditioning now. We're actually just about to go out onto the road with.
Pay me flight and I'll be over there. I used to play drums.
Oh, really?
Yeah, pay me flight and I'll come over. Fuck it. I'll audition for
if we had more than $4 in our bank account, we'd do that. And I think that's for lunch tomorrow. So
Right. Good luck, man. I hope it works out well. I mean, it's just good that you are touring next week, because otherwise you're going to be pretty much fucked.
Funny you mentioned that. We're actually in 2 weeks' time. We're actually playing a festival, and then 3 weeks after that, we're on tour with Nightwish and Angra.
God, that's going to be pretty hard, isn't it?
Well, we found replacements already. This is the good thing about being in the spot that we are, being one of the bigger metal bands in Australia, is we've got our pick of musicians whenever we need them.
Just hope they can do the songs really quick, learn them really quick.
Well, they can. Well, this is the thing with Dungeon. We've always surrounded ourselves with world-class musicians. So if we need them, then we get them.
Look, man,
that sounds really arrogant.
Who's the people that you're going to audition then? You know.
Well, currently we've got a guy called Glenn Williams, who plays in a band called Mobstar, filling in for bass, and we've got a guy called Todd Quarrell, who plays for a band called Celestial, filling in for drums. But,
what's his name? Sorry, what's his name?
Todd Quarrell.
How do you spell that?
That's a good question. It's Querrel, I think it is.
Right.
I'm
I'll put in brackets on their website. Tim misspelt it. Not my fault.
Todd, the drummer from Celestial.
Right.
That'll do. So they're filling in for us for the up and coming tours, but we're actually auditioning. We've got auditions open now for permanent members, and
right.
already we're just inundated with people just sending us in their press kits and everything. So it's been really good.
Cool. So how long is this DVD going to last? And how long is it? This live DVD?
The DVD goes for about 90 minutes.
That's cool. There's somebody to see quite a few songs on.
Yeah, well, it's a 45-minute live set, and it's a 45-minute documentary.
Right.
Yeah, we wish that the concert was longer, but it was part of a metal festival, and we actually played overtime. Right. So, we managed to fit in what we could.
Have you ever played the Big Day Out in Australia? You ever done that one?
No, for bands like Dungeon, that would be almost impossible. Because
I know Legions have done it.
Yeah, a Big Day Out in Perth is probably a little different to a Big Day Out in Sydney, because it's just purely alternative and punk bands, and with the occasional sort of grind band that for a traditional heavy metal band like us, we would never get a look in Sydney.
Good. All right, then, so just before we move on to talk about the new album, let's talk about your solo album.
Okay.
I mean, I've heard a couple of sound bites on your website, and it sounds different to Dungeon.
It does and it doesn't.
To me, and I suspect what I heard, I thought it sounded better than Dungeon, but that's why I really want to hear the album. It's like, wow,
The production is very similar to A Rise to Power, for starters, and the songs, they're very similar to what Dungeon probably would have sounded like if we stayed in the same sort of vein of what we were doing around 93, 94, which is a more, I guess, 80s-inspired hard rock style of Dungeon.
Right.
More solo tracks and everything like that, and I guess probably maybe a little more introspective than what Dungeon is. It's not necessarily as immediate as what we do in Dungeon, but it's just all stuff that's really, really personal to me, and it's pretty much everything on the album is something special.
So what's the album called?
It's called A Personal Journey.
Right. So has it actually been released yet then, obviously?
Yeah, it was released in Australia through Metal Warriors, and it was released in Brazil through Hellion Records.
Right, yeah, Hellion, yeah.
And we're currently looking for international licensees for it.
Right, because I did mention to LMP yesterday if they were going to release it, and they said no. I said, what?
No.
Why? It's fucking...
It's a little too commercial for them. A little too poppy.
Hey, dude, if you want any help, I can probably send you a couple of contacts by email.
Sounds pretty good.
You know? But man, you've got to send me a copy of that album, man. I really want to hear it. I really do.
Man,
it's like, when I heard them songs, I kept repeating them on my computer. It was like, fuck, dude, this is awesome. I mean, I've got to say this, Tim, and I ain't bullshitting you. You're the best Australian singer I've heard.
Cool, man. Actually, this sounds really egotistical now after you said that. There was the first annual Australian Heavy Metal Awards went on about a weekend ago, and I just won best vocalist.
Excellent,
so,
congratulations.
It's funny you mention that, and Dungeon just won Best Live Band too, which is really awesome. So it's just astounding that people are starting to vote for me now. I know I'm a good singer, but just to sort of hear people sort of say that sort of stuff still blows
I know that in Australia, I mean, because of their accent, sometimes it comes out in the voice.
Yeah.
Do you kind of agree with me on that?
I do, and I think if you listen to especially stuff from One Step Beyond, I guess there's more of an Australian accent in there than anything ever before. But I don't know. I guess I try and sing with more of an international accent, which is going to make it more appealing to to everybody rather than sort of going, oh yeah, this guy's he's a bloody Aussie, isn't he?
Skippy.
Skippy.
Yeah. So, I mean, who's your influences as a singer? I mean, Jeff Tate's in there, Rob Alford's in there, gotta be.
Oh yeah, Tate, Halford, Dickinson, Don Dokken, to a point, Tony Martin from Black Sabbath.
Oh, he's a great guy. I met him once, real nice guy.
Really? Yeah. Oh man,
Dude, he's actually played in my home city. I live in a city called Hull. I don't know if you know Hull at all.
All right.
He's actually playing in Hull in April. If you can send me a Dungeon CD, I'll pass it on to him for you.
That would be fantastic, man. He is such a big influence of mine.
I'll give you my address. I'll send you an email and I'll give you my address. And if you want to send me some shit over, I'll pass it on for you. It's not a problem.
I would love to. Joey Belladonna's another one. And what's really interesting is our guitar player Stu sent over a bit of fan mail to Joey, and he said, check out our singer, meaning me. And Joey checked it out, and he goes, wow, this guy's incredible. And it's like, I just thought, oh my God, Joey Belladonna said something about me.
Yes.
It's just, yeah, that blew me away because I'm such a big fanboy of Joey.
Right.
I guess John Farnham as well.
Who's he with?
John Farnham was he's a solo artist. He had an album out here called You're the Voice. He played with Little River Band for a while. Very well known in Australia, but probably not so much overseas.
Right.
Incredible voice, pop singer.
Right.
But, all the usual suspects. Just really mainly your Tates and your Dickinsons of the world more than anything.
Right. So what's the songs called on this album of yours that you put out? What are they called?
On the solo album? What was there? There was The Dreaming. There was Footsteps in the Sand. Freedom. The Traveller. Last Rites. Reflections. Journey Through Hell. One World. All sorts of, If you go to the website, it pretty much explains what they're all about.
I don't want to go to the website because I'll end up listening to silly little sound bites and it'll just fucking fry my head. I want to hear the album, not the fucking little 2 seconds of a song. It's like, fuck.
Well, it's got descriptions of what each song's about as well. I've done kind of like online liner notes and and what it's all about, so you can sort of get into my head a little more.
You're going to do like a next album? Do you think solo album? You think
yes.
About doing
The next album was actually going to be a concept album, but I don't want it to sound really cheesy and crappy. And every man and his dog is putting out a solo album, a concept album now.
Right.
So I still want to do one, but I just want to make
sure. Do it. Fuck it. If you
I do. But I want to make sure it's perfect before it goes out the door. So in the interim, I've actually been writing quite a lot of 80s hard rock songs, like in the vein of Dokken, Harem Scarum, Firehouse, and Leatherwolf.
Right.
And so I'm really keen to sort of get all those things together if I get a little bit of time this year and put that out as the next Lord album.
Cool. Well, I'm going to send you an email sometime today with a couple of contacts, like more melodic labels that might be able to help you out.
Sounds great.
So if you get a deal, man, cut me some money.
You're assuming I'm getting some.
Yeah. Right, Tim, let's talk about the new album then.
Okay.
Is it Step Beyond? Why the title?
Yes. Okay, what a lot of people don't know is when we record albums, we come up with titles which reflect where we see us or the state of heavy metal as it relates to us at the time.
Right.
Resurrection came out when, Resurrection was just the resurrection of heavy metal. Hammerfall was starting to do big things, and a lot of people were just starting to see how cool metal was again. And the band had just kind of come back from that really terrible time with broken deals and everything. So we just got a new deal. Heavy metal was exploding everywhere, so we called it Resurrection. Then we wrote the title track.
Right.
Then when we did A Rise to Power, Dungeon was really starting to sort of get a foothold in Australia. So we considered that kind of like our rise to power, as it were. With the next one, we wanted to take everything that we did one step beyond. And sure enough, the title was called One Step Beyond. And much like the two previous albums, we wrote the title track afterwards. And it was just purely, by coincidence that we ended up with a title track by the same name as the album. Really, really freaky stuff.
Cool. So what about Demolition then? Was that the fall of heavy metal?
No, actually, that was even funnier because it was all demos. And I said, why don't we call the album Demolition?
Right.
And everybody kind of cracked up around the table, and our manager at the time goes, hey, that's not a bad idea. And I went, oh, you're kidding. And the next thing we know, it's called Demolition.
Right. Okay, cool. So I mean, what's does the album of this new album, the title of this new album, reflect with the cover? Would you say?
No, actually, the cover was actually chosen. We were originally going to get somebody to draw the cover, and when we saw the finished artwork, we went, I see.
You weren't
So
impressed, actually.
not particularly. It was great for what it was, but it certainly was not us. So we were looking around, and we found a site by a very talented guy called Mark Sasso, and we were looking through his online art, and we found this one, which is like a spooky face in front of like an old spooky asylum,
Right.
like a madman's face behind an asylum. We thought, I guess that could sort of relate to, you know, the theme of the title track, One Step Beyond, if you read into it. So we contacted him, and he let us use the artwork, and it's been great.
Right, so, okay, so did you have any other titles for this album besides One Step Beyond?
No, it was always, the only title it was going to be was One Step Beyond.
Right, okay. Can you talk me through the albums briefly? I mean, Power Within, that is a great song. I mean, as soon as you start screaming, I love to hear Screamer. And if it's the first bit on the album, it's like, whoa, this is going to be a good album.
Well, what we wanted to do with that one, that was mainly an idea of Stu's, which I sped up and bastardized and put a whole bunch of other stuff into. The first thing you hear on the album is no bullshit, just play, and that's always been the philosophy of Dungeon. It's just we were actually going to do this big long-winded orchestral intro like every other heavy metal band has been doing in the last couple of years, and then we just thought to ourselves, what is Dungeon really all about? Yeah, when we get in and do our shows, we turn up, we play our show, we destroy the place, and we go home. You know, and we want our albums to sort of go, well, here we are, this is what we do, bang, you know, smack you across the face and then get out, you know, not overstaying its welcome, just get in and do it. So that's what we wanted to do. And then after that, we wanted the first thing that was going to hit you is just like this full-on track with this ridiculous kick you in the nuts scream.
It's brilliant. I love it. I love when I hear Scream. It's like Rob Halford's my favourite singer. It's like, whoa, you know.
Well, he's Stu's favourite singer as well, and Stu insisted that it needed something like that to open, and I thought, okay, here we go.
Awesome. It worked awesome, Tim. It really did.
Yeah, so Stu wanted to write a song that was just about, you know, finding your own inner strength, and you know, too many people sort of seek gratitude and fulfillment from outside places when they should really be looking to fix things from within, finding their own inner strength, because if you don't have everything right inside, then you're never going to be happy no matter what sort of external wealth you've got. So that's basically the philosophy of that song.
Right, the next song, Tyranno, you say it for me, mate. Telema del Mar,
Tyranno del Mar,
What does
Tyrant
that mean?
of the Sea. It's a Tyrant of the Sea in Spanish.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I see you've got the LMP listing. This is a different order than what the Australian and Japanese
Yeah.
do. Okay, yeah, Tyranno del Mar. This is another one of Stu's fun riffs that he came up with that turned into this monster.
8 minutes, 16 seconds, yeah.
Yeah, we ended up with like an entire choir in there and an orchestra, and there was like, I think, 140 backing vocal tracks and
Really?
25 guitars. It was unbelievable. And it's a pirate song. Arr.
Step Beyond title track, obviously.
Yes, One Step Beyond. All about sort of seeing through the falsities and illusions that people tend to sort of make you see, like seeing the world as it really is, looking past the quote-unquote truth that people would have you believe.
All right, Against the Wind. That's nothing to do with having breaking wind after you've had a curry.
Funny you mentioned that, actually. When Dak was in the band at the time, he said it was all about him being on stage standing behind me. So it's actually not the case. It's actually about depression of all things.
Is it really?
Yeah, somewhat less sort of, you know, fun than like farting.
Right, so why write a song about depression? I mean, is it happening within the band or something? Is it a band thing that's reflected?
Well, it's been a tough old career.
Right. I know the feeling.
Yeah, no, I've been through some pretty tough times, and that's a pretty personal song of mine.
Mm-hmm. One you don't particularly want to talk about, obviously.
Yeah, I can't really say too much, but if you read the lyrics when you get the album, you'll understand.
Right, okay. Art of War.
The Art of War. This was the first song for the new album. It's about a massive samurai battle in ancient feudal Japan, and it's brutal. We played this live, and the entire place just erupts.
Is it like a samurai warrior sort of thing?
Yeah, Stu's like really big into Japanese mythology and history and everything, and he just wanted to write something which reflected that.
Right, okay. And the next song, The Hunger, which is a brilliant semi-ballad.
Yes.
Actually, I think it's probably the best ballad you've wrote. I mean, I haven't heard your solo album, so that's, you know, I presume there's going to be a couple of good, cool ballads on there, but...
Yeah, there is. This one, this was about a couple of people...
Child or something in it. You're talking about Eyes of a Child, and...
What was that?
You're talking about Eyes of a Child on the lyrics.
Yeah, basically, what it's about is when you're young, you think you can do anything. When you're a kid, if you think you want to be a rock star, or you want to be a rocket scientist, or you want to be, anything is possible when you're a kid. You've got no preconceptions that you can't do anything until you get older, and then you start sort of learning about realities. Your parents saying, no, you've got to study, or you've got to do this, or it's not possible to do this sort of stuff, and it sort of crushes your dreams, and you start doubting yourself. But if the thing is, if you still have that innocence of a child, and you still believe that you can do these sort of things, there's no reason why you can't still follow these dreams if you still believe. And I know a few people in my life, one person in particular that they're still following their dreams that they've always had ever since they were a kid, and regardless of how hard it is or how much adversity they face, or how much they're told they can't do this, they're still following it. And so that sort of thing is just really, really inspiring to me, and I just had to put it into a song.
Right. Surface tensions. Is that something within the band with the old lineup? Is it something to do with that?
No, actually, that's purely fabrication. It's about some guy that finally just has enough and goes postal and kills everyone. Well, not quite, but just basically, I'm sure everybody's had those days where you get in the car, you're stuck in traffic, and
get out of my way, sort of thing.
Get to work, and the work is absolute shit, and and then you come home and the dog bites you. Or
is it a bit like that film Falling Down? Is it Falling Down, Michael
Yeah,
Douglas?
it's very much like that.
Right.
Very much like that. Yeah.
Okay, Under the Cross. Is that anything to do with Tony Martin, Black Sabbath, cross purpose?
No, it's about the rebellion on the Australian goldfields back 150 years ago, when a bunch of miners bound together to fight the oppressive government of the day, and they swore allegiance to the flag of the Southern Cross, which you'll find all over all of our stuff, which they end up losing the battle, but because of what they did, it changed laws in Australia, and a lot of people consider that the birthplace of true Australian democracy. So it was a really important, pivotal place in Australian history, and the battle at Eureka, the Eureka Stockade, and the Southern Cross flag has gone on to represent the struggle for freedom and the underdog in Australian culture, which is why we've sort of adopted it as our own.
Right, and then the last song is obviously you playing guitar in the toilet.
Yes, absolutely. No, what that is, it sounds like shit, doesn't it? No,
you said it.
I said it. No, what it is, back in the 70s and 80s in Australia, when TV stations closed down, they played the Australian national anthem before they closed down at the end of the night. So I thought it'd be a really fun thing to do, to play the Australian national anthem on about 1 million billion guitars, and make it sound like it was coming out of a TV.
Right, okay.
Just to close the album, kind of the epilogue of the album, so to speak.
Right, do you think this album was a good time length, or do you think it could have been a bit longer? Do you think the song?
With the bonus tracks that will come with the Digipack, I think it's a good length.
All right, what's the bonus tracks then?
The bonus tracks are "The Hero" by Queen,
right.
Which is the soundtrack to the outro credits of Flash Gordon,
right,
and "To the Living End" by Dokken.
Oh, cool. Talking of tributes, I mean, I've got, like I said, the Australian version of Raised to Power. You've got, Wasted Years, Iron Maiden, Queen's Right, Queen of the Reich. I've noticed on your website you seem to do a lot of, you've done, CDs with, tribute songs, but you can't seem to buy these anywhere. Where can I get hold of them? Can you copy them for me, or?
What's actually happened with that stuff? Back when we were looking for studios for Rise to Power, we auditioned a few, and when we were doing that, we recorded 6 of the cover songs that we were regularly playing around the time, which were namely Stand or Fall by Anthrax, Fast as a Shark by Accept, Caught Somewhere in Time, Wasted Years, and Prowler by Iron Maiden, and Queen of the Reich by Queensrÿche. Mm-hmm. And we recorded them all just to sort of see if my studio equipment was up to scratch for starters, and it turned out it was. So these songs ended up on different releases as they went along. Stand or Fall ended up on the Japanese release of One Step Beyond. Wasted Years and Queen of the Reich ended up on Rose to Power. What else do we have? We had Blondie's Call Me, and we had Caught Somewhere in Time and Prowler. They ended up on compilation CD. So a lot of these songs ended up sort of being used somewhere else down the line.
Because I noticed on your website you've got like loads of like unreleased tracks, or well, a couple of years ago I looked at your website and there's like unreleased CDs that I've never seen before. It's like,
Yeah.
where do you get all of this stuff, man?
You just can't get hold of them. There was only 6 ever copies burnt on the CD after they made in our spare time.
I know I can get a copy from you.
Really?
Yeah, please. If you
I'll
would.
see what I can do.
Yeah. Okay, so are you happy with LMP music?
LMP's going pretty well. I think there was probably a few misunderstandings when Rise to Power came out, especially when it came to the cover art. But that was all a big misunderstanding, and we've met with the guy personally, and I think One Step Beyond is going to be going great. The packaging for One Step Beyond, just from the graphics that I've seen, looks fantastic. So I'm expecting a really successful year.
So are you still with Metal Warriors in Australia?
Yeah. Metal Warriors is still our Australian and New Zealand label, and they're great.
Have you had any interest from other labels?
No, not really. We've actually just signed to Soundholic in Japan, and we're signed up to Hellion Records in Brazil, in South America, sorry. But between all of these companies, pretty much every territory in the world is covered.
Right. So what sort of album reviews have you been getting for this new album? Do you know? Have you heard any?
Fantastic so far.
It sucks, man. It sucks. It's a Bon Jovi album.
That's right.
I'm joking.
No, it's we've had 2 or 3 reviews in Australia because it's only been released in Australia and Japan at the moment, and they've been extremely positive. People have just been gushing about it. We've just found the first review, I think, was from the Netherlands, from Aardschok magazine, and we got some unbelievable review from there. So they must have just gotten an advanced copy. So we're really hoping that everybody else really sees what we're doing. And they don't download it, and they go out and buy it, and we actually get the money out of this damn thing.
Well, I like the album. Otherwise, I won't be doing an interview with you. Yeah,
well, there you go.
So, okay then. So next question is, are you going to be doing any touring for this new album? Are you going to be in Europe, like Wacken or any festivals or anything?
Yes, indeed. We've just finished doing Australia's biggest heavy metal festival, Metal for the Brain, in Canberra, and there's for the first time we're doing the Metal for the Brain interstate festivals. We're doing the Brisbane show. Then we're going to be promoting the album while we're doing the Nightwish and Angra. Then we've got our own.
Tell her to Ed Rule for me from Angra.
Oh, we'll do.
I interviewed him not long ago. A nice guy.
Ah, cool.
He's got a brilliant voice. He's the best singer Angra has ever had.
Yeah, really, really good new album, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. So after that, I think we've actually got a small tour of ourselves throughout Australia to promote the album. Then we're off to Japan again, and then we're off to Europe.
Right, whereabouts in Europe are you coming?
Well, definitely Germany, but all the dates and the venues and festivals or whatever that we're doing is actually being put together now, so that's in such an early stage.
The headliners are support act?
I'd say it's probably a combination of both. In Japan, we're going to be headlining, and I'd say there's probably going to be some dates in Europe where we are going to be headlining, but let's face it, in Europe we're nobody, so it wouldn't surprise me if we're going to be doing a lot of support.
Do you know who you're playing with in Europe?
Not a clue. Not a clue. I'd say we're probably going to be doing with some shows with Gun Barrel, also on Limb, because they're helping us put together some of the dates.
Yeah, I'm not too keen on them, actually. I thought they were pretty shit.
Oh, really? Yeah, they're really nice guys, actually.
Right.
But I'd say if we end up in Croatia, we'll probably be working with Undercode again. Once again, really, really good guys. But other than that, we're hoping to hook up with Doro and Ed Guy and all that sort of stuff if we can do it. But they've got a very, very busy schedule.
I know Nick from Doro. He's a friend of mine.
He's a great guy.
Yeah, his old band, I used to write to them, Deadly Blessing.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I used to write to them in the 80s, because I've been doing a fanzine since 1988, and now it's a webzine, so I'm probably one of the longest lasting journalists around, but yeah, I used to know Deadly Blessing really well, so it was like when I met Nick, it was like, what band was you in? He told me, I was like, no dude, no way. I used to write to you guys, kind of freaked me out a bit, but he's a real nice guy.
I still keep in touch with Nick over email, and we were trying to actually catch up last time. Well, we were in New York last year on a world promo tour, and we were supposed to hook up for a couple of drinks, but unfortunately he got called out to do the Blaze thing. We just never got a chance.
All right, Tom, I said, I'll probably speak to him anyway. So you played with Nevermore, they're personal friends of mine. I know Warren really well.
That was ages ago. That was one of the first international shows that we did, and I got to say we didn't talk to them too much because I think we were probably too in awe that we're playing with Nevermore.
Right, they were brilliant.
But they were really cool guys, and they can sure drink.
Have you got any messages for them? Because I'm seeing Nevermore next month in London.
Sure. To say, do you remember Dungeon from Australia when you played in Sydney? And we'd love to sort of do some shows very soon. It would be an honour to sort of share a stage with them again.
Brilliant. Okay, so who would you like to play with if you had the chance?
Obviously Priest, Maiden.
I'm actually seeing Judas Priest next month. I'm hoping to interview him because I know KK Downing and Glenn Tipton. So, I tell you what, Tim, you want to send me some CDs and I'll give them to the band for you if I meet them.
That would be great. Well, let's just say if they're coming down to Australia, the band to play with is Dungeon.
Yeah, because I know Priest have played with Black Steel.
Yeah.
And
they
Fight have played with the Legions.
Yeah.
So, right then, Tim, I'd like to thank you for doing this interview, mate. It's been a pleasure finally speaking to you.
Yeah, it's good to finally talk to you too, man.
And keep in touch. Do you have anything to say to the anybody reading this interview?
Yeah, well, we really, really hope you like the new album. It's something that we're all very proud of, and we just hope that we can see you on the road very soon. Cheers from Dungeon and Australia in general.